The story begins with 15-year-old Hajime Kugayama sitting in his classroom, marveling at how unpredictable life can be. He sees Ekuramos, a girl he knew from elementary school, and feels a thrill knowing that they're classmates once again in their small country town of Almi, which only has 5,000 people. He smiles to himself, remembering they never actually spoke back then. His friend notices his strange grin and asks what he's so happy about. Filled with a sudden burst of excitement, Hajime leaps onto his desk and shouts his new resolution to experience everything life has to offer, the good and the bad. His friend is just confused, unable to see the connection between Hajime's words and his sudden urge to climb on furniture. He hands him a manga novel to try and calm him down. Hajime had tried to talk to her back in the 4th grade, but Akira never said a word back. That's why it still feels so surprising, almost shocking, that she's at the same school with him again. But he knows she's way out of his league, so he keeps his feelings to himself. Later, during their lunch break, his friend suggests they go grab some food. But Hajime freezes when Momoi calls his name with a cold look on her face. Before he can even process it, she walks right up to him, getting so close that a flustered and panicked Hajime has to lean back against a tree for support. She traps him by placing a hand on either side of him, cutting off any escape. Then, in a very blunt tone, she asks him what his favorite food is. He's totally confused, not sure if Akira is really talking to him or just doing it because he happened to pick up some trash off the road that morning. He doesn't know what to say, so he glances down at his burger and decides to give an odd answer. He nervously tells her his favorite food is bagura. When Momoi just stares at him silently without any reaction, he starts to get worried. Did he say something weird? Before he can overthink it, she moves even closer. He's completely flustered. Hajime is so overwhelmed by her being so near that his legs give out and he slides to the ground. With a deep blush and his eyes squeezed shut, he mumbles that his favorite food is actually omelette rice with a big fried shrimp on top. Seeing his bright red face and his nervous silence, Momoi gives a small, soft smile. She tells him that she likes this about him, and that he hasn't changed at all since they were kids. Then, with a graceful movement, she stands up and slowly walks away. Hajime, still on the ground with his back against the tree, is just left there, completely stunned by what just happened. Meanwhile, when Momos gets back to her friends, they all rush over, excited to know how it went. The second they ask, her cold expression melts away into a flustered blush. Her eyes get a little teary and her heart starts pounding. She shyly admits that she asked him what his favorite food was. Her friends erupt in joy, absolutely thrilled with her progress. They pull her into a tight hug, squeezing her with excitement and cheering for her. With big smiles, they tell her to keep closing the gap between them, just one small step at a time. As Momoi shyly explains just how nervous she was to talk to Kugayama, one of her more confident friends asks if she followed the plan. Still blushing, she shows them her mission sheet. Today's task was to ask Kugayama his favorite food. Right below it, the next goal was clear: make his heart skip a beat. Momoi's expression becomes determined as she decides she's going to start practicing how to make omelette rice right away. On the other side of the school, Hajime's friend, holding some snacks, is surprised to see him hiding behind a tree. When he asks what's wrong, Hajime looks shaken and clearly upset. He's convinced that Momoi must have been acting cold because she dislikes him. His voice gets louder as he insists that she must hate him now for giving such a weird answer about the shrimp. Later at home, after cleaning up, Momoi goes over her to-do list of ways to impress Kugayama, completely absorbed in her secret mission. Meanwhile, he has no idea that he's slowly being drawn into the world of someone who has a quiet, massive crush on him. The next day, a crested ibis, the symbolic bird of Japan, is chirping softly on the classroom windowsill. Hajime stares at it with teary eyes, still feeling down after being rejected by his first love just the day before. Suddenly, he's startled when Momos appears right behind him and loudly tells him to meet her in the equipment room, offering no explanation. Before he can even say anything, she turns and walks away, leaving him completely confused. Panicking, Hajime stands up, wondering what he did to deserve this, since he hasn't done anything particularly good today. At the same time, Momoi is reviewing her plan for the day. Today's mission is to make physical contact, either by covering his eyes or by whispering a question about his favorite animal to get his heart racing. During the break, Hajime watches the ibis fly across the sky with a worried look on his face, hoping that everything will turn out okay. But when he opens the door to the equipment room, he's instantly terrified. Momoi appears behind him with an intense expression and suddenly covers his mouth with both her hands, almost like she's kidnapping him. He's so startled that he collapses, with her still holding her hands tightly over his mouth from behind. She realizes that the situation looks completely wrong and that she's totally messed up the plan. She quickly remembers the right step from her mission list. In a panic, she understands she was supposed to cover his eyes for a guessing game, not his mouth. Hajime, frozen and confused by her strange behavior, doesn't say a word. Seeing the fear still in his eyes, she quickly moves around in front of him and awkwardly shouts, "Guess who she is?" He stammers out an answer, still unsure of what's happening. But when she sees her mission failing yet again, she panics. Frustrated, she gets closer and whispers hurriedly, "She is Cat-chan," instead of asking about his favorite animal. Hajime, completely baffled by her weird actions, gently takes her by the arms and cautiously asks if she's alright. Her face is turning bright red. When he sees how flustered she is, he immediately lets go, feeling embarrassed and confused himself, and apologizes for touching her without thinking. Still overwhelmed, Momoi stumbles backward, completely flustered, and slams the door shut behind her. Left alone in the room, Hajime lowers his head in embarrassment, trying to figure out how things got so weird so fast. As Momoi stands outside, her cold, angry look quickly disappears, replaced by a deep crimson blush that spreads all over her cheeks. Later that afternoon, Hajime is sitting on the ground with his friend, still trying to make sense of Momoi's actions. He wonders out loud if the way she looked at him could mean she has feelings for him. His friend, who is clearly not interested and a little annoyed, just listens with a tired sigh. The next day, on his way to school, Hajime walks past a sign warning about bears. The Asian black bear has come out of hibernation and is leaving tracks nearby. But then he spots an elderly man lying calmly under the sign, looking like he's asleep. Alarmed and panicked, Hajime rushes over, kneels down, and gently lifts the man's head onto his lap. Assuming the worst, he shouts into his phone, calling his mother and crying that Miyazawa's grandfather has died. Hajime freezes in shock when the old man slowly opens his eyes and, with a faint smile, calmly tells him he isn't dead. It turns out this is the 5th time Hajime has mistakenly declared him dead. Hajime lets out a shaky breath, clearly rattled. He really thought it was real this time. But the old man, completely unfazed, just notes that despite all the false alarms, he hasn't died even once.
Hey guys, quick pause for a second. I checked the stats and apparently 99.7% of you watching still aren't subscribed. So stay hydrated, take a sip of water, and if you're enjoying the videos, hit subscribe. Now let's get back to the story.
When he gets to school, Hajime is clearly irritated. He holds his head in his hands, frustrated with himself once again for acting so impulsively. His friend, calm and amused, casually points out that this habit isn't anything new. Even as a kid, he was known as Hasty Hajime. He groans and snaps back, annoyed that his friend never told him. His friend guesses that maybe Momo's dislikes him because he acts before he thinks, or maybe because he approached her too suddenly once. He adds that with habits like that, he probably could never date someone like her. That thought hits him harder than he expected. His face falls, and he quietly tries to tell himself it's not true, but the sadness in his eyes gives him away. Hajime's calm reaction confuses his friend, until Hajime suddenly snaps, raising his voice and insisting that Momo's is just a concept. He explains that back in elementary school, whenever he talked to her on their walk, she would just stay quiet, listening and watching him. Hearing his friend's comment, Hajime smiles awkwardly, now embarrassed by the idea that he had just been talking to himself all that time. After school, as he's walking home, he's caught by surprise when Momo's walks up to him and silently hands him a marriage magazine. Confused and a little alarmed, he watches as she points coldly at a page and tells him to read a section. The tension in her expression and how close she is makes him feel more and more anxious and panicked, with no idea where this is going. Momoi, who is thinking about her plan for the day to get him to call her by her real name, Akira, is trying her best to look composed. But as she points over and over to her name printed in the magazine, her hands are trembling, her heart is racing, and she's starting to sweat. All she wants is to hear him say her name. Worried that her plan is failing, she starts to panic inside. Meanwhile, Hajime starts to think that she might be giving him an opportunity to talk. Feeling excited, he decides to start a light conversation. Standing there with her in the middle of the road, he suddenly brings up that wedding dresses used to be black. But when she just stays frozen and doesn't react, his excitement quickly vanishes. He regrets his choice of topic, thinking he's messed up again. The truth is, she's just too nervous to speak at all when she's around him. Seeing Momei's frozen expression, he suddenly remembers something from his childhood. He used to talk non-stop as he walked home next to her, even though she always ignored him with a cold look. The memory stirs something in him and he starts to get emotional, but he quickly shakes his head to push the feeling away. Still wanting to keep the conversation going, he thinks about telling her how happy he is to see her again. But then he remembers his friend's warning that Momei might not like how direct he is, and his confidence starts to fade. Even so, he doesn't want to miss the chance to connect, so he unintentionally blurts out how happy he is that they ended up in the same school again. Faced with Momoza's cold expression once more, Hajime panics again. He hastily tries to explain, saying that even though they were in different classes, at least they were in the same school and always walked home together. But when he sees her confused look, his anxiety just grows. He quickly apologizes, worried he said the wrong thing. Then, to his complete shock, Momei calmly replies after a moment of thought that they actually went to different elementary schools. Still puzzled, Hajime asks about all the times they walked home together. She then explains that she used to go to her grandmother's house after school. He must have only seen her on her way back from there, not at school itself. The realization hits him like a ton of bricks. He had never actually seen her at school, only on the walk home. All this time, he had just assumed they were in the same elementary school. Now feeling awkward and embarrassed, he starts to wonder if she's making fun of him. After all, he had always tried to talk to her, truly believing they were classmates. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by a baby wild boar that appears nearby. At first, they're both amazed for a moment, but then they quickly realize the danger. If there's a baby, the mother is never far behind and is probably very aggressive. Without a second thought, Kogayama grabs Mama's hand and starts running, pulling her away as fast as he can. After they've run a little way, he notices that their hands are still linked. Blushing with embarrassment, he quickly lets go and stammers an apology, explaining that he didn't mean to do it. Frustrated with his own impulsiveness, Hajime clutches his head, helplessly blaming his habit of speaking before thinking. He keeps apologizing in a flustered panic. But when he sees Momei suddenly run off, he instinctively chases after her. As he follows her, memories from childhood come flooding back. He remembers how he always tried to talk to her, even when she never answered. He'd often just walk up to her, asking about her favorite food or offering her his own fried shrimp and omelette rice. Every day he would come up with a new question about her favorite subject, school songs, or animals, but he never got a single answer. He especially remembers the last day of elementary school when he excitedly asked her what animal she liked the most. She had blushed a little, but still stayed silent. Now, as he's sprinting after her, Hajime keeps apologizing, calling out that he didn't mean to be creepy, but he can't catch up. Momei is running way too fast, her bright crimson cheeks showing just how flustered she is. Both of them are helpless and out of breath. They just keep running, one chasing in a panic, and the other fleeing in embarrassment. As fuzzy plants begin to bloom around the school grounds and the staff carefully picks each flower, spring quietly settles over the countryside. Today is the school's physical fitness test, and Kogayama is feeling more nervous than usual among all the students. His anxiety gets worse when he notices a graceful Momei wearing a ponytail while the teacher explains the day's events. There are 8 different events, with separate categories for boys and girls. This unexpected detail leaves him stunned. During the ball throw event, Hajime holds the ball, but his mind starts to wander. He's distracted by Momei. Her elegance stuns him for a moment, leaving him completely blank. Seeing that he isn't moving, his confused friend yells at him to throw it already. Hajime hesitates, thinking about how he's never cared about sports, even as a kid. But surprisingly, this moment feels kind of fun. Suddenly, Kogayama hears someone cheering for Momei. He turns to look at her and sees her stepping forward with her sleeves rolled up, her expression cold and focused. Her determined posture stuns him. He realizes that she's not just a top student, but she's also confident when it comes to sports. But her results are a surprise to everyone. She only throws the ball 30 centimeters, manages just 9 laps in the pacer test, has a long jump of 21 centimeters, and only completes 6 jumps in the weaving drill. Kogayama can see the frustration and embarrassment in her trembling expression. While his friend is nudging him to throw, he quietly hears Momei's voice as she clutches her chest, clearly upset that she won't be ranked first this year. When she comes back, one of her friends teases her, saying that she might be great with books, but even she can't win at everything. The teasing, even though it's playful, makes Kogayama feel even more worried for her. But Momei doesn't give up. Instead, she stands up again, her eyes steady and her heart reset. Her friend then whispers to the others that teasing her was just their way of motivating her to go after her goals. Impressed by Momei's determination to try again, Hajime throws the ball without even thinking. To everyone's shock, it flies over 60 meters, breaking the school record with a speed of over 100 kilometers per hour. Later, during the long jump, he leaps 6.55 meters, all while he's still thinking about Momei. After setting a new school record, he happily drinks some water, quietly admiring her from a distance. But his friend, clearly annoyed, asks if he's still more focused on Momo's than on celebrating his own success. Suddenly curious, the friend asks why Hajime never joined a sports club when he's so talented. Anxiously, Hajime explains that he's avoided sports ever since he got hit by a ball as a kid because he's afraid of the pain. But his friend doesn't seem to believe such a weak excuse. Their attention shifts again when they hear other students cheering for Momo's, encouraging her not to give up. Kogayama watches her silently, impressed by her strength and perseverance even when she's struggling. After the practice tests are over, the teacher, looking slightly apologetic, tells Kogayama that they forgot to measure his seated forward bend. Since the gym has already been cleaned up, the teacher asks him to use a small table nearby instead. Because all the gym equipment has been put away, Hajime sits at a small table for the seated forward bend test. His legs are extended and his back is stiff. He gets nervous when he finds out that Momo's will be the one recording his result. He tells the teacher, and indirectly Momo's, that he is in her hands, even though he's not sure if that's a good idea. Momo's walks up behind him with a tense, almost intimidating look on her face. Today's secret mission is to make his heart flutter with physical contact, something as bold as a back hug if she has to. Earlier that day, he had awkwardly shared his feelings and she didn't give any response. That memory makes him even more confused as she gets closer. Instead of a firm push, she lightly presses on his back between his shoulders with just 2 trembling fingers. Her heart is racing. She thinks the mission might already be working. Hajime, confused by the faint pressure, turns his head and asks if she is even pushing him. The sudden question startles her. Panic flashes across her face. She grabs his neck and forces his upper body forward. A sharp pain shoots through him. He reaches for his neck to try and recover, but her panic just gets worse. In a frantic attempt to fix it, she twists his head the other way. Kogayama loses his balance and falls flat on the floor, lying still with his head at a strange angle. Later, he walks across campus with bandages on his cheek and his neck heavily wrapped. He tells his friend that he's starting to get used to this kind of strange daily damage. His friend, looking worried, can only nod. As spring begins in the countryside, the school starts its special project on artificial salmon breeding. Meanwhile, in home economics class, Ms. Mariyama cheerfully announces that they'll be baking cookies. Blushing with excitement, she tells the girls to get into groups. Momei stands silently in her apron, her eyes fixed on the ingredients with a serious, determined look. Her friends Mimi and Kinchin watch in awe, impressed by how focused she is. They wonder why she's suddenly so motivated. Momei carefully follows the recipe, measuring every ingredient perfectly and mixing with great care. She double-checks every step, determined not to make a single mistake. Her 2 friends admire her dedication, thinking she might be the top student today. Seeing her work so hard, they offer to help by melting the chocolate. After all, they're all going to eat the cookies together. But she gently says no, with a slight blush on her cheeks, and softly tells them she wants to give the cookies to someone special. That's why she wants everything to be perfect. Touched by her shy honesty, Mimi and Kinchin hold her hands and cheer her on, saying that with so much love and effort, the cookies will definitely be amazing. After school, Momei gives the cookies to Hajime. But after just one bite, his face twists in shock. They taste terrible. Momei's expression turns pale with disappointment. Hiding nearby, her 2 friends watch anxiously from behind a wall, already knowing what went wrong. At the last minute, Akira accidentally mixed up the sugar with mustard powder. Realizing how harsh his reaction was, Hajime quickly apologizes, explaining that he has a habit of never lying. While his honesty impresses the girls, it only makes Momei more flustered. The mustard hits his throat hard, and he starts coughing uncontrollably. As he struggles to breathe, she panics. Trying to help, she attempts to offer him a handkerchief, but she accidentally blocks his airway instead, making things worse. In desperation, she runs to a nearby garden hose and sprays a blast of cold water right in his face. Soaked and gasping for air, he looks stunned. Her friends immediately rush in to stop her, worried that things have gone too far. Still trying to catch his breath, Hajime calms himself down and gently asks if she has any more cookies. Shocked, both of her friends duck behind the wall again. He smiles awkwardly and says the cookies have a unique taste, thanking her for making them just for him. Panicking again, he tries to take back his earlier reaction, puzzled by his own words, then awkwardly invites her to join them. But before he can finish, Momoi suddenly runs away. Just then, his friend shows up and casually suggests they go home and play a new game. Meanwhile, hiding behind a door, Momos wipes her sweaty face, overwhelmed with embarrassment. Looking down at the handkerchief she tried to give him, she blushes and gently presses it to her cheek. Later, as she's walking in a daze, her friends call to her from the rooftop. She looks up, surprised to see both of them giving her an encouraging thumbs up. Embarrassed, she shouts back, asking how long they've been watching. Now, these two friends are part of this quiet little story, and they've started to think that Hajime might actually be a pretty sweet guy. A few days later, a wild animal wanders into the village. The local people help guide it back to safety, and as a result, the school arranges a special lesson on how to handle wild animals. During the class, an old man named Lodi encourages the students to bravely get a close look at the bear, even though most of them are clearly terrified. Back at school, the teacher calls out Momoi to give her back her test results. Praising her, the teacher announces that she got perfect scores in every single subject, even though some of the questions were especially difficult. The teacher is particularly shocked, not just by her top scores in English, which was somewhat expected, but also by how well she did in modern Japanese, math, and chemistry. Some of the test questions were even from the third-year curriculum, but she still aced them. The biggest surprise is her Japanese history score. The class average was barely 3 points, but she scored an incredible 120. Watching all this, Hajime stares in awe, clearly impressed by her intelligence. His friend, meanwhile, teases him for getting a 0 or maybe a 1 in multiple subjects. Hajime just shrugs it off, saying he hates studying. His friend suggests he join a sports club since he's so good at sports. But Hajime proudly shows his score sheet and argues that failing a subject doesn't hurt, but sports come with pain. Just as he says that, the teacher slams a paper down on his desk and announces, much to his horror, that Hajime is the only one in the class who officially failed. The teacher warns him that if he fails again next year, he'll have to go to remedial classes. With a sharp sigh, the teacher adds, at least try to be more like Momoi. She's an intelligent girl. Hajime winces, feeling caught between admiration and dread. After class, Hajime sighs quietly, wishing someone would at least teach him. Just then, Momoi approaches with a stack of books in her arms and a study band tied around her head. Without saying much, she puts the books down in front of him and reminds him about the risk of remedial lessons. She calmly tells him that she will help him. Hajime panics and quickly refuses, saying it would be a burden. But Momos has a secret goal. She's using this study session as an excuse to hold his hand. She asks if he wants a private lesson. He nods, tightening his grip on the band as if he's preparing for a battle. Momos starts by drawing something strange on the board and tells him to translate it into English. Hajime, confused by the odd sketch, awkwardly guesses, dog. She silently hands him a sticker and a fake flower, which makes his eyes widen with joy. But she corrects him. The answer is wrong, though it's close, and since it's the first question, she'll be lenient. He tries again. Cat, bear, bird, each one is wrong. Yet she gives him a reward every single time. Although he's puzzled, he starts to feel more confident with each mistake. For the next question, she draws another shape. This time, he answers sadly, panda. Momos pauses for a moment, then nods. Correct. Frozen in disbelief, Hajime suddenly slaps her on the shoulder in excitement. At that exact moment, Momos remembers her original plan to hold his hand. Flustered and losing control, she accidentally throws an open book right at his face. He shouts in pain and collapses onto the floor. Momoi immediately panics, her eyes filling with tears as she regrets everything. Later that night, Hajime wakes up, lying on the classroom floor with the imprint of the book still on his face. He sits up, dazed and not sure if he's dreaming. The next day, he tells his friend everything, proudly saying he feels smarter, even with a textbook print on his forehead. His friend just laughs, but Hajime hides his test result. He failed again. It's time for the town's annual lion dance event, a countryside tradition where a lion playfully bites children on the head for good luck. Old stories, however, claim that those who are bitten get snatched away like in ghost tales. In the girls' changing room, Mimi is panicking because she forgot her gym clothes. She freezes until Momei calmly offers her a spare set, revealing that she has 5 extras. A few minutes later, when Kinchin asks for an eraser, Momei hands her one too, casually mentioning she keeps about 20 of them. The same thing happens with a notebook. Momei pulls one out from a whole box. Both of her friends stare in awe, joking that she's like their personal school supply store. Momei simply explains that she prepares everything ahead of time to avoid panicking later. Her friends are quietly impressed by her calm planning and thoughtful habits. Sitting a few chairs away, Hajime quietly admires Momo's meticulous planning. His friend, still looking calm, nudges him to head to the next lecture, remarking that Hajime's admiration probably comes from being her complete opposite. But when he opens his bag, he's shocked to find that he forgot his textbook again, blaming it on being lost in thought. His friend dismisses the excuse, but Hajime is puzzled by a letter from Momo's asking him to meet her after school at Benjamin Rock. After school, Momo's is waiting by the rock on Omi Town's Watchtower Island, holding a paper that says, "Today's plan," as waves splash around her. When Hajime arrives, he's confused and nervous, wondering why she called him to this place, which is known locally as the Lighthouse of Love. His confusion gets worse when he sees 7 bags behind her, each filled with different things, which makes him worry that he might have done something wrong. As Momei is focusing seriously on her today's plan paper, both she and Hajime are suddenly shocked when a monkey, which had wandered into the village looking for food, dashes past them at high speed. In one quick move, it snatches the paper from her hands and runs off, leaving both of them stunned and speechless. Still frozen in panic, Momei stares at her empty hands, sad that her plan has failed. Hajime, clearly worried, rushes to her side and gently asks if she's okay, whether the monkey hurt her or if she's just scared. Seeing her still standing there silently, as if she can't find the words, he gets more concerned. He gently asks if she needs a handkerchief, but then quickly realizes he doesn't have one either. With no response from her, he assumes she's still in shock. Feeling helpless, he picks up a stick and, with a gentle smile, offers it to her so she can write her feelings on the ground. At first, she seems confused, but then she starts to write something in the sand. As Hajime looks over, excited to read it, a sudden wave washes part of it away. Only a few words are left, and he misreads them as saying that he is annoying. Frustrated, he shouts in confusion, asking if he's really that irritating. She is just as puzzled. She hadn't meant that at all. She wanted to tell him that he's not annoying. She's still confused when a large wave crashes onto the shore, washing away all the words in the sand. Embarrassed, she quickly grabs her bags and runs off. Hajime shouts after her, asking if she really thinks he's annoying. But just at that moment, she trips on a rock. Before she can fall, he rushes forward and catches her in his arms. At that exact moment, a huge wave crashes over them, pulling both of them into the cold, salty water. Coughing and gasping, Hajime quickly turns to Mamis with concern, asking if she's alright. But he freezes in shock when he realizes she's no longer next to him. Just then, an old man from the town comes over and tells him that the girl has already left. Hajime runs fast along the coast. But a few miles away, Momo's is already standing by herself. She gently lifts the edge of her skirt to shake off the water, wipes her wet hair back, and takes off her soaked shoes. Her face flushes a deep crimson as she remembers the moment he held her in his arms just a few minutes ago. Meanwhile, back at the shore, Hajime sits gloomily next to the old man, sharing how Momo's might think he's annoying. With a gentle smile, the old man offers him a sea cucumber. It's the day of the sports festival, and an announcement echoes across the field: those who push beyond their limits will be rewarded. Annoyed, Hajime mutters to himself. Looking back, he feels like nothing has changed. He's still the same person. While practicing with a ball, he grumbles about whoever came up with this festival, complaining that even boxing seems less scary than pole toppling. His constant complaining irritates his friend, who sighs at his dramatic mood. At that exact moment, while kicking the ball in frustration, Hajime twists his foot. A sharp crack follows, and he falls hard to the ground, wincing in pain. Now, Hajime sits quietly, his foot completely bandaged, with bruises on his cheeks and nose. Still sulking, he grumbles bitterly about why he hates sports festivals, especially because of moments like this. His friend, clearly annoyed, reminds him that it was entirely his own fault. He also passes on the PE teacher's instructions. Hajime is not allowed to participate any further and should just watch the rest of the events. As he sits there, slouched and defeated, he overhears a group of girls chatting nearby about the upcoming first-year big ball relay, one of the main events of the Aoming High School Sports Festival. Hearing that, his expression shifts to one of fear. He remembers how last year that same massive ball knocked him down and almost flattened him. With a sigh of relief, he quietly thanks his lucky stars that he's not participating this year. But suddenly, from a few meters away, Hajime notices Momoi tying a headband around her forehead, her eyes filled with a fierce determination. Her focused energy is so intense that it stuns the students around her, leaving them quietly impressed by her will to win this time. Seeing Momoi's overwhelming energy, all the other classes quietly team up with one goal: not to let her win. As two students start carrying the giant ball, the game begins. Everyone rushes toward the ball, trying to block its path. She stands at the back, even turning his face away, motivated. Sensing from the crowd's cheers that the ball is getting closer, Momo suddenly jumps high, trying to grab it. But her timing is completely off, and she misses it badly. However, no one seems to notice except for Hajime. Moments later, Mimi excitedly runs up and hugs Momo's, cheering for her as if she had just won the game for them. Soon, every student is impressed by the yellow team, whose giant ball keeps leading to more victories. Meanwhile, Hajime, terrified of being hit by the massive ball, hides behind the other students, trying to keep a low profile. In this round, Momoi tries her best over and over again, determined to succeed. But despite her efforts, her timing is still off, and she can't quite manage to do it properly. Even so, Mimi rushes over once more, excitedly hugging her and cheering as if they've won the game again. While watching everything happen, Hajime is quietly shocked. With the red team now in the lead and the second-year event about to start, part of him wants to join in the excitement, but his fear of pain holds him back, so he decides to just keep watching from the sidelines. His mood darkens when he sees another boy from his class walk up to Momoi, clapping and congratulating her on their victory. Not wanting to watch, Hajime quickly turns his head away. Just then, a stray ball from the basket toss event lands near him. He sighs, thinking about his decision to sit out of the sports festival. Convincing himself that he's fine on his own, he suddenly grabs the ball and, with unexpected determination, throws it from a long distance. It lands cleanly in the basket. Momoi, who was watching from afar, is visibly impressed. Still feeling gloomy, Hajime lowers his head again just as Mai offers Mamas a bottle of water. His thoughts are interrupted when his friend walks over and gives him a message from the teacher. It says that if he's feeling better, he's welcome to join the next event, but it's completely fine if he prefers to keep watching. He's lucky, perhaps, to have the choice, since deep down he still isn't ready to fully jump in. He is left stunned when Hajime suddenly ties a headband around his head, his eyes filled with determination. He decides that to get the right kind of attention, he has to push himself beyond his limits. He steps forward to join the game. Now the boys' competition begins. But when his friend sees Hajime's suddenly nervous expression, he's shocked by this unexpected change, especially since he had been so insistent before. As the announcer calls out the next event, the boys line up for tug-of-war. Hajime grips the rope tightly, full of determination to show his strength. At the signal, they start pulling with all their might. However, the opposing team is made up of members from different sports clubs, and they're so powerful that they overpower Hajime's team almost instantly, dragging them forward in a single pull. Hajime and his teammates fall hard to the ground like fish being hauled out of the water. Suddenly, he feels a strange sensation on the back of his neck. Turning around, he's startled to see Momo standing at the edge of the cheering crowd, staring at him intensely. Her eyes almost seem to be glaring. Confused, he stares back at her, but she panics and runs off toward her friends. Her friends burst into laughter, teasing her. Embarrassed, she explains that she wasn't glaring. She had only been silently praying for Hajime's success, too shy to cheer out loud. Meanwhile, Hajime is still puzzled by her unusual way of supporting him, while his exhausted friend Renji decides to go buy ice cream. Later, the next event, the human horse battle, is announced. Hajime, excited and confident, calls for Rendeji to join him. However, their opponents are muscular, towering members of the red team. In no time, the red team charges with full force, sending Hajime's team flying. Now, lying on the ground, bruised and stunned, Randy winces and wonders if Hajime is even still alive after that impact. Meanwhile, in the cheering section, the girls are getting worried about their classmates' injuries. Suddenly, an announcement rings out. The final event, pole toppling, is about to begin. The winning team will get triple points. If the yellow team wins, they have a chance to take back the lead. This news reignites Hajime's hope. Fired up and determined, he rushes toward the pole, imagining the glory of a miraculous comeback. But the moment he gets there, he freezes. The red team, a wall of strength, has already surrounded the pole. Their intimidating presence fills the field. Seeing the chaos, Rendaiji hesitates and nervously asks if Hajime really wants to do this. He pauses too, suddenly questioning his own decision. Is this worth risking a serious injury? Maybe even worse. He dashes away at full speed, trying to escape the chaos. But just as he turns, he spots Momus still standing there, silently praying for him. Caught in her gaze, he stops. With no way to back out now, he turns again and, driven by a sudden impulse, leaps high into the air, so high that he soars over the crowd itself. Even he is shocked by his own action. In that instant, he realizes that he wants to see Momo's smile. But just as he's about to reach the pole, overconfident and within arm's reach, a massive opponent climbs up, grabs him by the collar, and scolds him for such a reckless stunt. Then, with a powerful kick, he sends him crashing down hard. Later, Rendaiji calls the infirmary to report Hajime's condition. Now Hajime lies in bed, completely bandaged and injured. The doctor tells him that while he's lucky his head wasn't seriously hurt, he absolutely cannot play for the rest of the day. Still, he lies there gloomy and frustrated, haunted by his impulsive move and the thought that Momos will probably never talk to him again. But unknown to him, Momos is standing quietly just outside the room, deeply worried. A few minutes later, as Hajime lies on the infirmary bed, an instructor stops by to tell him about the upcoming cheering contest, then leaves to join the event. In a weak, pained voice, Hajime asks if, given his serious injuries, he can finally skip PE classes. The teacher sternly refuses. Disappointed, he then asks if he can at least be excused from the football tournament, but that too is denied. Dejected, he sighs and asks if he can just sit and watch, but the teacher rushes off with a loud scolding, blaming him for his own recklessness. Left alone, Hajime groans in frustration, regretting his impulsive actions, how his body moved without thinking. And now he can't even find the courage to face Momus. Just as he sinks deeper into self-blame, the teacher suddenly reappears to inform him that a classmate has come to visit. When he looks toward the door, he freezes. It's Momei. Back at the cheering contest, Mimi notices Akira's absence and looks shocked. Both she and Kinchin quickly realize that Momos must be worried about Hajime and has gone to visit him. They grow concerned when they remember how awkwardly she speaks, often relying on scripts to talk. In the infirmary, she stands silently by Hajime's bed, fidgeting as if trying to ask something. Hajime, deeply embarrassed by her sudden visit, struggles to find words. Then, with a blushing face and trembling voice, Momei leans slightly toward him, closing her eyes as she softly asks if his injuries hurt. Startled and moved by her concern, Hajime first glances at his walking stick. Then, trying to reassure her, he suddenly leaps up with one hand and hangs from a nearby crutch, flashing a bright smile. He is totally fine. No need to worry, he says proudly. Seeing him act so energetic, Momei finally smiles, her cheeks turning red as she closes her eyes with relief. Hajime watches her, completely mesmerized by her expression. Just as he's about to speak again, the door swings open. The doctor walks in, speaking on the phone and asking if the cheering team needs members, as most are already injured. Startled, both of them freeze. Momei, now flustered, quickly hides behind the wall. The doctor mentions that once Hajime's treatment is done, he'll be cleared to rejoin the sports events. So, he happily waves at her, wishing to see her again. But as she leaves, he immediately grabs his walking stick for support. His wounds hurt so badly that he cries out in pain. The doctor, also worried, advises him to rest. While shouting, he scolds himself for doing such a reckless stunt despite being injured. He wonders if he likes her, but then quickly rejects the thought, thinking they are too different. She's amazing and completely opposite to him. Though he tries to stop such strange thoughts, he helplessly clutches his chest, lying there, emotionally overwhelmed, injured, and unsure how to deal with his feelings. As rumors spread about a strange creature spotted in Japan, a hunting contest was announced with a reward of 1 million yen, marking the start of summer in the countryside. At school, Kogayama sits gloomily, clutching his heart as he shares his feelings with Rendaiji during lunch. Though he isn't planning to confess yet, he's still teary-eyed and worried about the possibility of rejection. Rendaiji, with a cold expression, responds bluntly, warning that if he confessed now, he'd probably be rejected. Leaning against a tree, Rendaiji explains that Momo's visit to the infirmary might have been a sudden emotion-driven action without deep affection. He then firmly advises Kugayama to focus on bettering himself until he becomes someone worthy of her attention so that her affection naturally grows. With a serious tone, he warns that a clumsy or rushed confession with low affection points would likely end in rejection. Motivating him with conviction, Rendaiji encourages him to increase those points through effort and only then confess, confidently adding that this strategy has helped him win over many girls. Knowing this, Kugayama becomes very excited, eagerly notes down everything, and thanks Renji for the advice. Meanwhile, Rendi sighs to himself, thinking sadly that all those girls he mentioned were only from dating games. Now recalling their awkward and negative first meeting, Kugayama decides to wait patiently and slowly improve himself, aiming to become worthy of Momo. But just a few minutes later, he suddenly finds himself in a suffocatingly small space, uncomfortably close to Momo. So close that he can't even move. Panicked and confused about how he ended up in this situation, he hears the voices of other students entering the room. Shocked, both he and Momo freeze and in panic, he grabs her and hides in a nearby spot, quickly closing the door. As the students settle in and continue chatting, Kugayama, overwhelmed by the extreme closeness, begins to panic even more, afraid that this accidental situation might ruin the progress of his relationship with her. As both hide inside the locker, Momo blushes while looking at today's planned script. Her mission is to give Kugayama her handmade cupcakes. She grows upset, thinking she's already failed the plan. Meanwhile, Kugayama is panicking, worried that being found together in the locker would be humiliating. Just as he's about to escape, he's shocked when Momo's, with a nervous expression, suddenly puts a cupcake into his mouth. In his flustered state, he doesn't even realize what it is. She tries to stick to the plan, but noticing he's already reaching for the knob to leave, she panics. He quickly holds her hand to stop her. She turns around blushing while he tries to calm her down. But she becomes even more anxious, flailing her arms in embarrassment. In the commotion, the locker door bursts open. At that exact moment, someone outside screams and all the students rush to the window. A bear cub is wandering into the schoolyard. Seizing the opportunity, Momo and Kuyama dash out of the locker and escape. Kuyama looks around to make sure she's okay, but she's already disappeared. He's still catching his breath when Renji appears and casually asks how things went with Momo's. Kuyama, flustered, shyly admits he's confused about her feelings. That night in her room, Momo's writes in her journal, cheeks red as she recalls how close they were in the locker. Smiling, she calmly plans her next move with a hopeful heart. Later, as Kobayama stands tired on a bridge, he asks Rendaiji if there's any plan besides raising affection points to make her fall for him. Rendaiji, half joking, suggests he try loading a previous save file. The next day at school, everyone eats lunch while chatting about how in the countryside children are well trained in skills like identifying stones, especially jade. Mimi teases Momo for not even knowing how to ride a bicycle. When Momo explains she grew up in Tokyo, where bikes weren't necessary, her friends grow annoyed at her excuse. They decide to teach her how to balance properly when they notice Kugayama nearby awkwardly carrying a huge pile of books, even balancing some on his head. Rendi warns him it's dangerous, but Kugayama insists he's saving time for the trip and even asks Renji for help. Watching him, the girls suddenly smile. They've come up with an idea. The next morning, Kugayama is shocked to find Momo's waiting on the road with a bicycle. She greets him with a cheerful good morning and asks for his help. He freezes, realizing this must be Mimi's doing. She likely arranged for him to teach Momo how to ride. Noticing her nervous expression, he's still puzzled about why she chose him specifically. But then it clicks. This is a chance to increase affection points. Determined, he agrees to help. As she puts on her helmet, she silently recalls her mission for the day, to hug him. Kugayama dares to teach Momo how to ride a bicycle. He first helps her straddle the seat and places her feet firmly on the pedals. But to his shock, she somehow flies forward into the air and nearly falls until he rushes ahead, throws himself to the ground, and breaks her fall on his back. Still confused by how she even managed to fall like that, he sees her worried expression and scolds himself, realizing it's her first time, so he needs to teach her more carefully. He attaches training wheels, then confidently assures her that now it's impossible to fall. Yet unbelievably, she flies off again, legs up like she's holding a steering rope, and he once more dives beneath her to catch the fall. This time, she lands squarely on him again. Kogayama blames the training wheels and scolds himself for not guiding her properly. Determined, he grabs the bike from the front, thinking there's absolutely no way she can fall now. But on the next attempt, she still manages to fall, only this time his head ends up under the wheel and they both tumble straight into a rice field. Covered in mud and lightly injured, they slowly stand up. Seeing her sad expression, Kogayama gives in and offers her a ride instead. He sits on the seat and tells her to hop on the back so he can show her how it's done. She hesitantly sits behind him, but as he starts pedaling, she remembers her mission to hug him. Flustered by the thought, she panics, shakes, and both of them fall again, same as before, straight into the field. A nearby old man passing by, watches in concern and asks if they're all right. Later that day, Momoi comes home, gently removes her muddy uniform, and soaks in a warm bubble bath. Remembering how close she sat behind him, she gets so flustered that she hides under the water, prompting her mother to call out, telling her not to stay underwater too long. Meanwhile, at Kogayama's house, he limps in, bruised, and exhausted. Seeing his condition, his mother stares at him in shock and asks if he got into a fight with a bear. The next morning in the countryside, a Shiba Inu looks sad after a tanuki steals its food, but that's just a part of life out there. As the school bell rings, Kinchin is surprised to see Akira arrive right on time, especially since a train hit a deer and all the lines are stopped. Her efficiency becomes even more impressive when she casually explains that she changed 5 buses just to make it on time. Everyone smiles, imagining her adventurous morning journey. She calmly adds that she was rarely late in elementary or middle school, so she didn't want to break that record. Now, her friends are genuinely impressed by her dedication. Hajime arrives at school with a dirt-stained uniform and an exhausted face, clearly worn out, but deeply impressed by Momoza's determination to manage everything perfectly. Seeing his messy state, Rendeiji suggests he clean himself up quickly. A few minutes later, Rendeiji asks if he wants to visit the bookstore after school, but Hajime smiles and declines, explaining that he has to visit a relative's house and catch a train no matter what. After school, he finally manages to catch the train and is surprised, almost frozen, to see that Momoi is also in the same carriage. But then he realizes the train only has one carriage. Seeing her calmly reading, he's once again impressed by how far she traveled, even that morning, just to make it to school on time. At the next station, feeling hungry and not wanting her to notice, he quietly decides to get off and buy something to eat. As they step out of the train and walk outside, he becomes puzzled seeing her carrying bags of seafood in her hands. Curious, he follows her, only to be shocked when she starts eating a simple snack instead. Confused about why she bought seafood, he hides behind a tree and watches. That's when he catches a glimpse of her picking up an airplane-shaped stick. Suddenly, she starts moving with it like she's acting out a hero's role. Then, as she accidentally drops all the food on the ground, she grips the stick more seriously and begins swinging it like a knight in training. The intensity of her movement stuns him. She then picks up her luggage and starts walking again with him silently following. Soon, she finds another stick and begins practicing again. But he grows worried seeing her sad expression when she accidentally drops the stick under a bridge. At that exact moment, a cat appears, making her smile, and he feels relieved. But suddenly, a swarm of cats surrounds her. To her surprise, they begin attacking, drawn by the smell of seafood. Concerned, he throws down his bag and runs to help her. But just as he reaches her, she slips from the bridge and falls into the water, only to be unexpectedly swept away by the cats and a bear. He runs to catch up, but can't find her anywhere, so he climbs down the slope, growing more anxious when she's still nowhere to be seen. Then he spots her hiding behind a tree, leaves tangled in her hair. Worried, he calls out to her, but she panics, looks around wildly, and suddenly attacks him with the sharp pincers of a red snow crab. Startled, he tries to calm her down, but as he shields himself, he slips and falls down the mountain, having now witnessed a completely new, tomboyish side of Akira. The scene shifts to the morning of the entrance ceremony. Mimi and Kinchin are walking to school when Kinchin spots Momo sitting on a chair. Surprised, she tells Mimi that girl is giving a speech today. Curious, Mimi asks for more and Kinchin explains that Momei had moved to Tokyo, then transferred back. She also mentions that Momo's was with them at South Elementary School. Watching Momus hiding behind a pillar, Mimi feels irritated, thinking Tokyo girls always underestimate countryside girls. But then, Momei suddenly gets up, scrubs the table, flattens it, neatly arranges her books, and politely asks an old lady to sit there. Both girls are surprised and impressed by her manners. When Kinchin praises her, Mimi, still annoyed, suggests they follow her to find a flaw. As they trail her, they see Momos picking up trash, donating money, and helping others. Though impressed, Mimi complains that this perfect girl makes her feel bad. Kinchin scolds her, pointing out that Momei is seriously focused on her speech, even while walking. Suddenly, she waves her hands in the air, mumbles something, then drops to the ground, and places her palms down like she's practicing wall slams. The girls are startled. It looks scary. Just then, a gust of wind blows her speech paper into the air. Without hesitation, Momei jumps into muddy water to catch it. Panicking, the girls drop their bags and run to help. Momei stumbles in fear, but Kinchin catches her. She shouts for Mimi to grab the paper. Mimi, a basketball club member, leaps and catches it. She's shocked and asks why Momei dove into dirty water just for a speech. But when they check, it's not the speech. It's a today's plan sheet with stickers and the question, which food did he like? Seeing the girl's expressions, Momos mumbles that there's someone she wants to marry. Soaked in holding the wrong paper, Momos realizes the mix-up. All three burst out laughing, their stomachs hurting. A few minutes later, they arrive at the entrance ceremony. Momos, now clean and in uniform, gives her speech, relieved that everything worked out. Meanwhile, Mimi and Kinchin awkwardly stand in t-shirts. When the teacher asks if they're new students without uniforms, they quickly apologize, lying that they forgot to bring them. The next day, Momo surprises the girls with cute cat mascot cookies. They're delighted. She bows and thanks them for lending her their uniforms for the speech. Curious, they ask how she knew they liked the mascot. Momo says she noticed it on their keychains. Then she bows again and apologizes for looking at their things without permission, blushing. The girls exchange glances, smile, and hug her. They finally become friends. Later after school, Momei stands in front of Kugayama with a cake stand. Watching from a window, Mimi tells Kinchin that quirks aside, Akira might actually succeed in love. But just then, Hajime slips and falls, with the cake landing on his head. Behind him, Momei panics. Her foot had slipped and caused the accident. Both girls sigh in disappointment, regretting their earlier hopes. In Japan, seafood is considered such a treasured gift that even children can identify the species just by tasting it. At Rendaji's house, while playing a game, he is shocked to learn that Kugayama still hasn't gotten Momei's contact information. Turning around and seeing Kugayama's disappointed expression, he scolds him for not making any progress in their relationship. Kugayama emotionally admits that even though he wants to, he hasn't been able to act. Then, sitting boldly on the chair, Rendaji gives him advice, revealing that earlier that day he overheard Mimi asking Momei to wait for her in the library because she'd be late due to club activities. Hajime is stunned as he finally realizes Rendaji's plan. After school, Hajime arrives at the local library, determined to ask Mamis for her contact information. But in the pin-drop silence of the library, it takes all his courage to even speak. Sitting at a chair, he feels awkward just being there. He's never come to the library to study before, so following someone here feels especially creepy. Embarrassed, he decides to head home. But just as he stands, he's suddenly surprised when Momei arrives and places her book on the table with a gentle, cute expression. Relieved that she hasn't noticed him yet, he quickly grabs a book and turns to the opposite side. However, he becomes puzzled when he hears the loud sound of Momo's heartbeat in the quiet library. As she spots him and realizes why he's there, her panic rises, and now both of them are flustered in the silence. While feeling extremely nervous, he closes the book and stands up, pretending to grab another one from the shelf, anything to avoid the awkwardness of asking for her contact info directly. But as he picks up one book, he suddenly freezes, shocked to see Mama's eyes peeking through the gap between the shelves. Panicking, he quickly places the book back and immediately grabs another one, trying to act casual, though his heart is pounding. While he's still shivering, he suddenly hides, thinking maybe it was just a hallucination. As Momei gets up to grab a book as well, he nervously steps back, trembling. He sees this as a good opportunity to talk to her. So he starts to move quickly toward her but suddenly stops when an old lady with a bright smile asks if he is Hajime Ryota's friend from elementary school. He gives an awkward smile, completely confused as he had no idea that his friend's mother works here. Now he becomes disheartened as Momo sits back down at her seat. So with no other option, he starts reading his book. Time is running fast, and while he's trying to focus, his mind keeps planning. He just wants to sit next to her like someone in love would. As he looks at the pages, he wonders if it would be weird to directly ask for her contact info. Maybe he should wait until she stands up again. But feeling that might not work, he decides to write his question on a piece of paper and hand it to her. That would feel more thoughtful. But his thoughts are interrupted when an announcement plays. The library will close at 5 p.m. So he immediately looks up and is shocked to realize that he was so busy planning, he didn't even notice she had already left. While walking home, he's even more surprised to see her sitting on a bench, holding a pigeon in her hand, surrounded by flying birds. She's waiting for Mimi. Seeing this as a chance, he excitedly starts talking. But out of nervousness, he says something completely wrong. Still gathering all his courage, he finally asks her for her contact info. But just as he does, the 5 p.m. chime rings loudly, drowning out his words. She can't understand anything, and he's left completely annoyed. Then, finally gathering his courage again, he smiles nervously and directly asks her if they can exchange contact info. It feels like a mesmerizing moment. She is sitting there blushing, nervously looking down while birds chirp all around. She looks puzzled for a second, then quietly agrees. They finally exchange contact details. He humbly bows, wishes to see her again, and walks away. But after taking just a few steps, he freezes, overwhelmed with happiness and excitement. He can't believe he finally got her number. Still, he keeps his true feelings hidden, afraid that confessing might make her uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Mimi comes running toward Akira, apologizing for being late. But noticing something different, Mimi grows curious and asks if she's okay. Momei, still flustered and a little sweaty, shyly nods, because she had clearly heard when he said he wanted to know more about her.